The human boy's tortured screams pierced the cold metal halls of the Galactic Council's research vessel as they ripped into his young flesh, not knowing their experiments would soon bring hellfire raining down upon a dozen of their homeworlds. I took a swig of my whiskey, the burn in my throat a reminder of the pain that drove us to torch those alien bastards. Sagan, a young Tarkalian, barely old enough to order a drink, slid into the booth across from me, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. "So you're Daniel Young, right? The human who led the attack on the council?" His voice trembled slightly. I nodded, my scarred face twisting into a bitter smile. "What's it to you, kid? Looking for a history lesson?" I growled. Sagan swallowed hard, his gaze flicking to my missing eye and the jagged scar that ran from my brow to my jaw. "I want to know the truth about the Tarkalian incident. They say it's what started the war, that it's the reason your kind hates us so much." He flagged down the bartender, ordering me another drink. I chuckled darkly, leaning back in my seat. "Hates you? Nah, we don't hate you, kid. We hate the council. And let me tell you something, they earned every bit of fire we rained down on them." I accepted the drink, taking a long pull before setting it down and fixing Sagan with my one good eye. "It all started with a distress signal from one of your research vessels. They claim to have found a derelict human ship adrift in space, with a single survivor on board. A young boy no more than 10 years old." I paused, the memories flooding back, threatening to drown me in their intensity. The Council, in all their infinite wisdom, decided they needed to study him, to poke and prod and see what made humans tick. They promised to return him to us once they were done, but they lied through their goddamn teeth. My fists clenched on the table, the anger still fresh after all these years. "They kept him for years, kid. Years of torture and experimentation, trying to figure out what made us so resilient, what made us keep fighting no matter the odds. But they underestimated that boy's will to survive. And they sure as hell underestimated what we were willing to do to get him back." I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. "When we finally found out what they'd done, there was no stopping us. It didn't matter how many ships they had, or how advanced their technology was. We were going to make them pay for every drop of blood they spilled, every scream they ripped from that poor kid's throat. And if we didn't, they would just keep doing it, keep trying to break us down until there was nothing left." I sat back, draining the last of my whiskey. "So that's what we did, Sagan. We burned their worlds and shattered their fleets. We showed them what happens when you fuck with humanity. And we made damn sure they'd never forget it." I leaned forward, my voice growing harsher as I delved deeper into the story. "When the boy's parents found out what those Tarkalian bastards had done to their son, they went ballistic. His mother and father, both top brass in the military, demanded the council return him immediately, but the council refused, claiming the kid was too valuable to let go." I downed another shot, relishing the burn. "That's when the humans said, 'Fuck it, we'll do it ourselves.' They put together a covert ops team, led by the boy's old man himself, to infiltrate the research facility and get the kid out. It was a goddamn suicide mission, but they didn't care. They'd risk it all to bring one of our own home." Sagan leaned in, hanging on my every word. I painted a vivid picture of the rescue op, how the human team used cutting-edge stealth tech and tactical know-how to slip past the facility's defenses. They fought like hell, gunning down hordes of Tarkalian guards as they pushed deeper into the complex. Bullets flying, blood splattering the walls, they didn't stop until they reached the boy's cell. My voice faltered as I recalled what they found inside. The kid. Christ, he was in bad shape. His body was broken, scarred from years of their sick experiments. The father scooped him up, cradling his son as tears poured down his face. The rest of the team held off the Tarkalian reinforcements, barely making it out by the skin of their teeth. They got the boy out, but the real war was just getting started. Sagan's expression morphed from curiosity to shock, and then righteous anger as I continued my tale. His hands clutched the edge of the table, knuckles turning white as he absorbed humanity's history of suffering at the Council's hands. "The Council had the fucking gall to call us criminals," I snarled, slamming my empty glass on the table. "Said we violated galactic law by rescuing that kid, that we breached Tarkalian sovereignty. What a crock of shit." I signaled the bartender for another round, my voice dripping with disdain. They demanded we return the boy, that we hand over the heroes who saved him so they could rot in some Tarkullian prison. But humanity told them to shove it where the suns don't shine. The drinks arrived and I tossed one back, relishing the fire in my throat. We blasted that kid's story on every frequency, to every corner of the galaxy, laid bare the Council's crimes for all to see. And you know what? Other species started rallying to our side. Races the Council had ground under their boot for centuries, all rising up as one. I leaned forward, my face inches from Sagan's. But those Council bastards, they couldn't let that stand. Their little empire was starting to crumble, so they launched a full-scale fucking invasion of human space. Thousands of ships jumping in to blockade our worlds, raining plasma down on our cities. My voice rose, the memories of those early days flooding back in vivid detail. They thought they could drown us in bodies and guns, thought we'd break under the onslaught, but they didn't know shit about human tenacity, about the infernos raging in our hearts. I could see it all play out in my mind's eye as I spoke. Human ships, outnumbered 10-1, screaming into battle against the Council armada. The void alight with the fire of our fury as we ripped into their formations. We had to get creative, use every dirty trick in the book. Guerrilla raids on their supply lines, hit and fade attacks on their flanks, ramming freighters packed with antimatter into their capital ships, anything to even the odds. Sagan was on the edge of his seat now, eyes blazing with a mix of horror and awe. "We painted the stars red with their blood," I growled, my voice low and fierce. "Showed them what it meant to fuck with the human race. Showed them that we would never bow, never break, no matter the odds. For every one of us that fell, we swore to take 100 of them down with us." I took another swig of whiskey, the burn familiar and grounding. Sagan stared at me, his eyes wide with a mix of horror and fascination as I continued my tale. "But it wasn't just our rage and thirst for vengeance that won us the war," I said, my voice growing reflective. "It was the allies who stood with us, the species that saw in humanity a chance to break free from the Council's tyranny." I described how our diplomats reached out to the Krillians, the Zephyrians and the Nadari, races that had long suffered under the Council's iron fist. We shared our technology, our resources, our intel, forged a united front against those bastards, and together we hit them where it hurt. My mind flashed back to those crucial months, the tide of the war turning in our favor. We launched coordinated strikes on their key worlds, blasting their supply depots, comm relays, and command centers to rubble, gave them no quarter, no chance to catch their breath. Sagan leaned forward, his drink forgotten as he hung on my every word. I couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction as I recounted the Council's downfall. Our spies uncovered a critical flaw in their shield tech, a vulnerability to a specific radiation band. Our brightest minds worked round the clock to cook up a weapon that could punch through their defenses like tissue paper. I could still see it in my mind's eye, the final assault on the Council flagship. We snuck a strike team aboard, fought our way to the reactor core, planted the bomb, and blew that fucker to Kingdom Come, along with the Council's top brass. My fist clenched at the memory, the visceral rush of watching our hated enemy's leadership vaporized in an instant. With their chain of command in tatters and their fleets in chaos, the Council crumbled like a house of cards. They had no choice but to surrender, to accept our terms. I drained the last of my whiskey, savoring the warmth spreading through my chest. We made 'em pay for every atrocity, every injustice. Forced 'em to disband their regime, to make amends to the races they'd ground beneath their heels. It was a reckoning long overdue, and by God did we deliver it. Did we deliver? I sat back, the enormity of it all weighing heavily on my shoulders. The whiskey burned in my gut, a small echo of the fire that had consumed the galaxy. Sagan stared at me, his face a mix of horror and disbelief. "But our victory, it came at a cost beyond measure," I said, my voice heavy with the ghosts of the past. "Millions dead on both sides, planets reduced to ashes, and scars that would never heal." I told him of the aftermath, how we tried to pick up the pieces and rebuild. The humans and our allies, we worked to forge a new order, one built on the ideals of justice and equality that we'd fought so hard for. But not everyone was happy with the new status quo, I revealed, my tone turning bitter. Some of our supposed friends, like the Zephyrians, they thought we'd been too soft on the council, that we should have ground the Tarkalians into the dirt. I recounted how a splinter group of Zephyrian fanatics, whipped into a frenzy by some charismatic madman, split off from the Alliance. They launched their own crusade of vengeance against the Tarkalian worlds. They hit civilian targets, butchered whole cities, left nothing but corpses and rubble in their wake. Called it justice, but it was just more fucking killing. My hands shook as I described the final horrific act of the war. The Tarkalians, backed into a corner like a wounded animal, unleashed a bioweapon, a plague engineered to rip across the stars. It burned through everything it touched. Human, Tarkalian, Zephyrian, it didn't matter. Just left mountains of bodies and a galaxy in ruins. I fell silent, the weight of it all crushing down on me, the ghosts of the past howling in my mind. In the end, there were no winners, only those left standing in the ashes. The war changed everything, broke something in all of us. We got what we wanted, but the price... Sagan sat there unmoving, as if the horror of it had turned him to stone. I hauled myself to my feet, suddenly feeling every one of my years. "Remember this, kid," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "War ain't ever the answer. Revenge just breeds more pain. We gotta learn from this shit, or we're bound to do it all again." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Sagan there amidst the ghosts and the echoes of a galaxy torn asunder. The wounds might have scarred over, but the pain never really fades. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.